All right, Lance Schuttler, welcome to the Keto Camp podcast, my brother.
Hey, Ben, it's great to be here. Thank you, man.
Yeah, so we connected offline. Dr. Lana Morrow, who's a mutual friend of ours, connected us. We're both down here in South Florida, and she's like, "You two need to know each other. You're both doing great work in the health space." And then I started to look at your company, Ascent Nutrition, and I liked what I saw. I saw some interviews with you, and I saw your interview with Dr. Lana, who's been on my podcast. She's awesome. We love her. And then we ended up having dinner here in Bay Harbor Islands, where I lived, with a whole bunch of other guy friends, and we just hit it off. And I love what you're doing. And I asked you to come on the podcast and talk about the research you're doing. So thank you for being here. I just love what you're doing. And you ready to have some fun with me today?
Absolutely, Ben. Thank you too.
So let's get into your backstory, because you and I kind of both have a similar story in regards to seeing what conventional medicine, allopathic care, big pharma has done to people we love, seeing the writing on the wall and going a opposite 180 direction to find the truth. So if you could go back to that and how that happened for you.
Yeah. So about 14 years ago, I had a very close family member end up taking his life, and sort of how it got to that point was he was going through states of depression and states of just not feeling his best mentally. He had been going through things throughout his life, but one particular winter, it was just specifically bad and challenging for him. And so he went to a doctor to try to get some help. And, they prescribed him antidepressants, and it helped a little bit. It waned, it went up, it went down. And then he ended up switching maybe a few months later, up and down again. And then, a little bit after that, he ended up just taking his life and passing on. And that was obviously a big wake up call for me and my family, and a lot of people around us. But it really opened the door for me to first open my heart and really try to understand what the meaning of life is and what the purpose of life is. I didn't go into a deep, dark, depressed state, but I certainly had my grieving to do, and do that throughout the months and years beyond that. But it really just catalyzed my awakening into, okay, how do we actually become healthy? What is happiness? What is health? How do we use natural methods to do it? Are there natural methods? Because at the time I didn't know anything about this stuff. And as I just got deeper and deeper into it, started learning that we can and we do have sovereignty and control over our lives and our mindset and our happiness in a way where we can implement foods, diet, lifestyle, uh, you know, exercises of all sorts to help us be healthier and happier. And of course, the social connections are a huge part of that, our relationships. And so it just sort of awakened me to what could be, and also understanding how politics and money play into the pharmaceutical industry. And there's just different things with that I started to understand, and really started to be able to connect a lot of dots.
Yeah, yeah, and I could totally relate to that. We know it doesn't work. And when I say it doesn't work, chasing symptoms, it does not work, because symptoms could be far removed from the actual cause. And I want to get into that. So Lance, let's get a little bit into chasing symptoms versus getting to the cause. Maybe some like specific examples. But why is looking at just symptoms and treating that missing the boat with how to actually overcome health conditions and challenges, or even better, prevent them?
So with symptoms, the way that I like to look at it, and obviously this example is used very commonly and people know it already, but it really does drive home the point of band-aids. We could look at certain pharmaceutical drugs, or some sort of practice or anything really, as if it's not going to the root of the issue, then it really is just sort of a band-aid for covering up the deeper underlying cause of what's actually going on. Symptoms are just that, they're the byproduct of a cause. And so if we can go find the cause, then we just neutralize the issue right at the source of it. And that's obviously what we want to do in health and wellness. And medicine, they want to do that too. But the standard model that we've got right now here in the West is not doing that. Clearly, it is symptom management, and it's not about getting to the root of the issues. And that's one of the things with the pharmaceuticals. And I don't really want to trash them or dog them, but these pharmaceuticals are made in a way where they can only go after symptoms for the most part. There are some drugs that can target things very specifically, but we both know that these pharmaceuticals really do just sort of help with symptoms, but don't get to the root issue. And that's where, things that we're working on and many, many others out there in the world, getting to that root so that we know how to actually address it for other people moving forward as well.
If symptoms are a result of a cause or causes, then symptoms are actually a great thing because it's showing you something is off. Let's get the body back to homeostasis. Let's find the cause versus, like you said, a medication, a surgery, a shot, whatever it is, a procedure to mask the symptom. And the perfect example of that is like the diabetic. And this happened to my dad, the diabetic who gets diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and the doctor puts him on insulin. And the doctor tells them you could pretty much eat whatever you want because just take more insulin if you have higher blood sugar. And that's masking the symptom because, yeah, their sugars look much better with the insulin dosage and the increase in insulin dosage, but the diabetes is getting worse and worse. And then eventually that diabetes turns into kidney failure. It turns into your eyesight, losing your eyesight. It turns into amputations. It turns into heart attack or stroke. So it's just, to your point, masking the symptoms, not telling that patient, hey, maybe if you change your nutrition, you don't have to use as much insulin. The diabetes regresses, and then eventually you could get off your medication altogether. Is that exactly what you were saying, Lance?
Yeah, definitely. It's clearly there's a model put in place to keep people on drugs and keep them as returning customers. Obviously that needs to change and is changing. And it's changing because of things like this information. Think of the information age that we're now in. Even just 10 years ago, while these topics were being talked about, they weren't being talked about anything close to the amount or the frequency of which they are now. So, the information age that we're in, it's beautiful and amazing because people can take back their power and help themselves and really, get to the root of their issues. And while they can use the Western medicine model if they would like, there are other options, and there can even be solutions where both of them are merged. It's not like, I know neither one of us are throwing the baby out with the bathwater on this system, but we do know how deeply, deeply flawed it is, and how a lot of it really does need to go by the wayside.
Correct. Exactly. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's a time and place for conventional medicine and conventional doctors, and thank God we have that. But most of the time, it's a lifestyle change, right? It's a lifestyle change that's going to make a big difference. It's what I call the 3%ers. The 3%ers is a short line of people willing to make a lifestyle change versus the 97% who are looking for band-aids and they have microwave thinking. So we want to make sure we don't treat our health casually, because if you do, you end up a casualty and a statistic, and we don't want that. What about, Lance, some things we can do that are free, right? Like nature, right? You're a big fan of nature. You were telling me before we hit record, you go outside and do affirmations and you just feel the rainfall. And so what are some things we can do in nature to heal our bodies?
So one thing that I really like to promote is getting sunshine and sunlight in the eyes in the morning. And one thing that I'd like to really specify is that it doesn't need to necessarily be full bright sun. It can be a full on overcast day. If you step outside in the morning and get those photons hitting the retina of the eyes, it's stimulating a cascade of physiological effects that ultimately results in better neurotransmitter production, and just overall healthier and happier mood and outlook. But short term specifically, it really helps you wake up in the morning. And optimal levels, up to 20 minutes is really what they've found to be great. More can be better for sure in moderation. But getting that light, getting those photons hitting the retina of the eyes is amazing because of what it's doing to us. We are electrical beings. If you look at our nervous system and brain, and we run off of electricity. And so what happens is those photons actually are converted to an electrical signal in the brain, and specifically in the eye, that the brain then reads and can transmit that information. So we're literally activating ourselves on a photonic level when we're getting sunlight in our eyes in the morning. And we both know that Dr. Andrew Huberman has done so much research and talks about this all the time, getting light in the eyes. And, he's really spread this awareness quite far. Another thing that I really like to do in combination with that, and it's, again, free and simple, is touching the earth with our bare skin. So I do this in the morning where I'm just grounding and getting sunlight in my eyes. And we know that if you look at PubMed, there's over 20 published studies on earthing or grounding. And we know that there is a distinct electrophysiological response in the body when we do touch the earth, because there are negative ions, those electrons that our skin receptors, or on the bottom of our feet, as an example, the nerve receptors on our skin picks up those electrons and literally takes it in and is able to transmit the energy that those electrons provide for us. So that's a free and simple way. But what that does ultimately, the biggest thing, is reduces inflammation. We know that there's good thermography studies, of course, anecdotal studies, showing that when you earth and ground and touch your skin to the earth, you can reduce your inflammation. Pain levels go down. People report sleeping better. It really is nature's medicine. It's free and simple.
It is, and you could do both at the same time. Two birds with one stone. And you said something really important. You said getting those photons, getting the sunlight through your retina, your eyes. That means if you're wearing sunglasses, you're not going to get this benefit. I mean, I see so many people walking outside in the morning, because I walk in the morning. I do exactly what you just said. And I see them wearing their sunglasses, and I want to just, educate them. If you took off your sunglasses, you get so many more benefits. Do you see that as well? People just wearing those sunglasses all the time?
Absolutely, and I'm with you. I want to say things, but sometimes it's not necessarily our place. If it's friends or people close to me, I'll definitely not tell them what to do, but just provide information along the lines of what we're just talking about. That, hey, if you take in the light as we're meant to, and not wear those glasses all the time, you're most likely going to actually feel a difference short term, but certainly long term, it is going to affect and help you.
And you mentioned grounding. I love it, because you're right. It's like taking a handful of antioxidants. And I've interviewed Clint Ober, who has, who he is, amazing story of regenerating his liver from grounding. He was pretty much diagnosed with a terminal disease, liver failure, and I forget the percentage of how much his liver was left, but he actually regenerated his entire liver. And he chalked it up primarily to grounding, taking off his shoes. And that's something that you do, something we could do any day. And people hear this, they hear us talk about this, and they're like, yeah, but I live in London and I live in Seattle and but you mentioned it doesn't have to be sunny. You don't have to live in Florida like Lance and I. It could be an overcast day. And grounding, what platforms can you ground on? Does it have to be the beach? Does it have to be the sand or grass? Like, what are the grounding platforms that we can use and walk barefoot on?
Yeah, so sand, grass, dirt, concrete, as long as the concrete is, actually touching the earth itself. Wood is not conductive. So a lot of people, you would actually think that it would be, but if you're sitting on a wood patio outside of your home, as an example, that's not earthing or grounding. But if you have some sort of metal rod that's connected to the earth and you've got it, strung up next to you and you touching it, you literally are grounding. And we can see that with the different measurement devices and how it changes voltage and things like that in the body.
What about hugging a tree? Do you get some grounding benefits to that?
I believe that they've tested that as well, and that is earthing and grounding too.
Yeah, it makes sense. The trees in the ground, and yeah. So go hug a tree. Be a tree hugger. I hug trees from time to time. And let's talk a little bit about what the last 2+ years have caused a lot of people around the world, which is anxiety, fear, stress, and the impact of that, your mental health, on your physical health.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I really like talking about, Ben, and you and I have obviously talked about this, is the concept of neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. And, in short, what that means is the ability for the brain to repair and regenerate itself, but also make itself moldable and plastic, so to speak, in that we can change how we think, we can change our wiring literally in our brain based on thoughts, based on actions, based on foods and nutrients, based on exercises or lifestyle practices that we're implementing. And, with the past 2 years, clearly there's a lot of push to keep people inside. And that certainly had a big effect on people's mental health and well being. First, they're just not getting as much sunlight. Second, less exercise. Third, less social interaction, which is a huge component in neurogenesis and neuroplasticity and just overall health and happiness, as we all know. But specifically, those connections really are important for the health of the brain. And they've studied this in some very unique ways. But with that, these past 2 years really have pushed us to a breaking point and to the brink, all of us individually and collectively. And I think also along these lines, part of this has been good in that it's helped people to reorganize and reshift their priorities and what's important for them in their lives. And that in and of itself, just that concept of thinking and self-evaluation, uh, while it might not have in the moment a neuroplastic effect, it certainly does long term, because you're thinking about things differently, you're self-analyzing and trying to understand what's actually important. So, clearly we know that people have suffered a lot during the past 2 years in many, many ways. And getting people to focus on their mind and their brain and getting into states of rest and relaxation and implementing certain diets and lifestyle practices really can and does help people. And clearly, we've seen that.
You're right. A lot of people, and essentially what you just said, Lance, is there was a paradigm shift where people, the blessing of what happened the last 2+ years, there's many blessings, of course, but one of the main blessings is that people are now aware of how important it is to prioritize their health. And for you and for people in the health space who are educators, it's a great time to be alive for us, because we are here to offer people that were hopeless, to help them become hopeful, to educate them, to help them take priority with their health. And that was a blessing with COVID. People didn't really do that beforehand. They took things for granted. But when there's this, people getting sick and people being in fear, living indoors and staying inside, and you start to realize how important your health is. And that was a big blessing. And it helped me, meaning a lot of people started to discover me on YouTube and the podcast, and I got to help them. I'm sure it helped your company. People started to search for products and things that could support them. So it's so important to prioritize your health. And I love that how you shared the relationship between neurogenesis, fear, anxiety, et cetera. Now, question for you in regards to mental health, in regards to anxiety, in regards to sleep, which is in close relationship to mental health and stress. What role does CBD play? CBD is kind of like the wild, wild west these days. You have all these companies promoting CBD. What role does CBD play with sleep and stress and inflammation in general?
Yeah. So, okay, with inflammation, clearly it impacts the COX genes, and it will help to downregulate inflammation in different ways. People have used CBD and hemp products, particularly over the past 4 or 5 years, to really understand or to help themselves for, pain, inflammation, healthy sleep, healthy mood support, things like that. But the inflammation, like that's, as we know, one of the big things that people use it for, because it simply works and people feel the benefits. Now, in relation to, let's say, mood or anxiety or the brain, there's something very interesting that CBD has been shown to do, and it relates to something called the Pavlovian fear conditioning extinction process. So what this means is that, so we all in some ways have learned fear or learned uh, whether it's a sound or a smell or some situation that we've gone through, maybe at a young age, that we were conditioned to be in fear from this. Okay. And it could be something simple and harmless as, let's say, you were with your mom and like a car door slamming something happened, and that car door, every time you hear it, that triggers some sort of PTSD or a rememory of this event. But what has been shown is that CBD can actually help those neuronal pathways to become extinct. It will actually kill them off. And it does it through a few different ways. And it's very specifically strong for auditory fear expression. So people who have fear around noises and noises that trigger fear, uh, it's been shown to really help in that. And you can find those studies on PubMed, and there's a lot of very interesting information. I'm myself learning more about it so that I can speak more fluently on it. But as an overview, that's what it's doing. It's very fascinating stuff.
Very fascinating. I wasn't even aware of that. That's interesting. Now, I wonder if there's a connection between this like cell danger response in the mitochondria, like is this surveillance system, and when there's a threat, it'll shut down energy production. I wonder if maybe you've seen it, if there's some studies that show CBD could help with the cell danger response, which essentially what long COVID is, right?
Yeah, yeah. Specifically, I don't know the answer to your question, but I do know that there are things in relation to that. I don't know specifically in the exact technical language.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyways, we could explore that, and those listening and watching, go on PubMed and explore for yourself. Now, all right, that's CBD, but like I mentioned, it's the wild, wild west. How do you know which company is doing it the right way and the sourcing? Like, what are some red flags? How do you decipher good CBD product versus the ones you want to stay away from?
Yeah, so there was a study that came out recently, Ben, where they looked at several different companies. They didn't list the number, but I would suggest, or I would assume it's, dozens or maybe hundreds. Here in the US, there's about 3,500 different CBD companies, or there were about a year ago. So clearly, like you said, it is the wild, wild west. Now, with this study, it showed that 40% of those companies that they looked at didn't have the amount of CBD in their product as they advertised. Okay. So first and foremost, the supplement industry sometimes gets a bad rap, although for the most part, it is very regulated and very controlled in good ways. People are really trying to do the right thing. But when CBD and hemp really started to become a thing, a lot of people got into it and they wanted to make a buck very fast. And so they just bypassed the things that we working in this field, for a long time understand of, okay, you need to be authentic and real first and foremost with what you're telling people is in the product. That's bottom line. But then, things would get taken a step further. So, along those lines, clearly, then you want to look for something that's grown organically or at minimum without pesticides. Hemp does take pesticides, there are farmers who spray it. So you want to make sure it's clean in that way. And then there's different extraction methods that you can use. And some are cleaner than others. The hexane, from my perspective, is the dirtiest of them. CO2 is much, much, much cleaner. And really is often regarded as a superior source or a superior method than hexane. And what we do, Ben, is we wanted to separate ourselves even more from that in our process. And so what we do is we actually take the whole hemp plant and then we will infuse it with organic coconut oil, MCT, and gently warm it and then mechanically press it and literally squeeze out all the different phytocannabinoids, all the different 120 plus. And then that results in our product. And so that's, a differentiating aspect that we're doing. And then we also start from the strain. And so the strain level. So what we do, and you can find this on PubMed, we actually have what they call NCBI references our strain as the gold standard in hemp genome sequencing. And, for us, we're very happy and proud of that because we know that we have great genetics of this strain and only we have access to this. And so what that means is we've actually tested this in some different ways and shown that we beat many competitors. I don't want to say all because we haven't tested against 3,500. We outperform many competitors in terms of the phytocannabinoid content and just in the richness of that. And we can show that with our genome testing and everything that we've got there.
Yeah, I love that you broke that down, and that's crazy how kind of corrupt. People are taking advantage of CBD. Same thing with like exogenous ketones and anything that gets popular. Companies like to take advantage of. So it's very important not to get the cheap stuff, to go with the real deal. And your company, Ascent Nutrition, has you're referring to your product, which is the full spectrum hemp oil. And you could find that. We'll put the link down below. There's also, we're going to go through different products that you have and some of the research, of course. And everybody listening and watching could find all of the products mentioned. All of your company, Ascent Nutrition, can be found in the link down below with the coupon code Keto Camp. I remember when we had dinner, you brought me and my guest a bottle of CBD and these other products, and I used it. I went through the whole bottle of your hemp oil, and it was fantastic. Like, I used it before bed, and it really helped with my sleep. So I saw exactly what you were referring to, and I've tried a lot of different CBDs, but yours was really good. So I love that you explained the difference between the cheap stuff. So yours is CO2 extracted, is what you were saying?
No. So what we do is we do a coconut oil MCT
Oh, okay.
extraction, and we actually call it an infusion process because we're not, extracting in the traditional sense. We're actually infusing it. We are extracting, technically, but we just call it infusion because we're blending and literally mixing and then squeezing out all those different terpenes, the phytocannabinoids from that whole hemp plant, not just the flower. So that's another aspect of what we're doing is we're using the whole hemp plant, not just the flower. And, we grow this here in the United States. We grow it in Iowa and we grow it in Colorado. And we hand plant our plants, literally. We hand weed around them. And, the team that we've got working on this is really incredible. They literally live and breathe this. So it's really amazing to be working with people who it is their passion to be out in the fields and actually helping these hemp plants grow and to become their best so that they can help us be our best.
Yeah, I love that. I love the attention to detail there. Let's move the conversation now to immune health. A lot of people, going back to what we just said about the last 2 years, are now prioritizing their immune system. And there's a misconception out there that you want to boost your immune system and have a strong immune system, and that sounds great, but you don't really want to boost your immune system or have a strong one. You want like an efficient immune system that is very adaptable. You don't want a weak one, you don't want a strong one. So let's talk about the immune system. So maybe you could pick up where I just left off explaining that, and then some easy ways to optimize this amazing immune system that we do have.
Yeah. So the way that I look at it, just what you said, Ben, is homeostasis. We don't want our system too activated, our immune system. We don't want it too underactivated. We want it right in the middle. And that goes really with everything in life, but that's the concept. We know in this industry that there's certain herbs and roots that you don't want to take continuously to boost the immune system, and echinacea is one of those. Like, you can take them medium to long term if you want, but it can have the effects of over upregulating the immune system. So that's commonly known short-term use only. We don't want to, just like you said, boost the immune system every single day. We want to build a strong immune system. We want to be at a good foundational level so that we don't have to be in the state of, I need a boost, I need another boost, I need another one,
Exactly. And homeostasis, like you said, pretty much everything we do needs to find that hormetic zone. So what are some like easy travel tips, for example? Everybody's getting back on airplanes and cruise ships. What are some things we can do to optimize our immune system that are free? And then some of your favorite ways to optimize the immune system that are not free.
So one thing, I mean, it's very common sense, but it makes the most sense from my perspective is getting enough sleep that night before you travel. Let's talk about a plane as an example. If you're flying on a plane, we know that there's a lot of different EMFs that are up in that plane. We're just naturally higher up in the sky, and so we're exposed to more radiation. So getting enough sleep, first and foremost, very simple in theory. But then, tying in things where you are hydrated enough, because I've been in this situation, I'm sure many others have, when you're dehydrated on a plane, Not a fun situation. And the water that they've got there, commonly not what you want to be drinking. So hydrating, getting enough sleep, ensuring that you've eaten well, or whatever your diet is, however you're implementing food into your life, make sure that you are actually in a good state before you travel. You don't want to be in a state where you're feeling either short-term sick or chronically sick and then have to go get on a plane. I've seen some photos of Ben Greenfield posting when he gets on a plane, he'll put on a big EMF suit. And I think that would be awesome. I personally haven't done that, but it would be ideal for every person if we could literally shield out and Faraday cage those strong, harmful EMFs that are present in planes and, up in the sky that high.
Yeah, it's a flying microwave essentially. And I would add to that, fasting on a plane could be great. Because if you're gonna eat a meal, well, first of all, like you said, the water is not clean, the food's definitely not clean. It's not even real food. But if you are going to even eat healthy food on the plane or right before the plane, you still have to use energy and resources to digest that versus like dealing with all of the radiation. So those tips are great. Hydration, getting quality sleep. But I always usually fast when I'm on an airplane to make sure my innate intelligence is just primed and ready to go. Something that I've read about over the years and just heard from colleagues is pine needle extract, pine needle tea, and what that does for the immune system. And then there's a lot of studies that came out there, and you actually developed a product on pine needle. So why did you decide to develop that? What's the research on pine needle?
Yeah. So a year and a half ago, Ben, when this whole situation, this global situation really started taking off, there were different scientists who came out and started talking about pine needles and pine needle tea and really what the indigenous were using them for, which is cardiovascular health, lung health, respiratory, immune, in some ways, brain health and detoxification too. But what these scientists did, and this went viral within our communities and just within alternative and holistic health and media, that these pine needles, they're loaded in shikimic acid. And shikimic acid is a compound that actually makes up Tamiflu. It's the main active constituent of Tamiflu.
How do you spell that?
Shikimic acid.
Yeah.
Shikimic acid.
That's impressive that you knew how to spell that. Go ahead.
So this compound, obviously it makes up Tamiflu. So they know certain properties that it has. And these scientists really wanted to just bring this out in a way of, okay, what were the indigenous using these for? Just like I said, lung and respiratory mainly. And how can we bring this to current day and make this applicable for today? And so they tied this in with the fact that shikimic acid is loaded in pine needles, and specifically white pines. There are other pines as well. And so when this information came out, we wanted to really be able to utilize it. And our goal was to create a product that we could get out to the masses. Okay. And so there were a few hurdles that's important to talk about, in that when this information came out, people started selling pine needles, wild harvesting on Etsy, and that's great and wonderful. And I support all of it. And at the same time, there was probably some price gouging going on from some people, not everyone, but it was routinely $100 to $150 a pound for these needles. And, most people just don't have that sort of money to just buy tea. If it's a supplement, that's one thing, but just making tea, a lot of people don't want to spend that money. And so we knew how important this was, particularly given this global situation and how, we're seeing the effects of cardiovascular health and, athletes and how it's affecting them, in terms of, what's been happening and what people chose to put in their bodies at different points or didn't. And the cardiovascular health is so important, particularly right now. And that shikimic acid and some of those other compounds in pine needles can actually cleanse the blood and can actually help support just strong overall free radical scavenging ability within the blood and circulatory system. So what we wanted to do is get this out to the masses because we knew how important it was. And so what we did is we have another product that we source from up in Canada, pine pollen, but we wanted to get the pine needles. And so we started sourcing up in Canada. These are with friends that I have and people that I'm working with that we're wild harvesting, and then we're processing it with our facilities up there in all the right ways, pass all the testing, so forth, and then it results in a 1 ounce tincture of pine needle extract, and we hold it in glycerin. We don't hold it in alcohol. A lot of people don't like the taste of the alcohol. It's often like burning and just a little off-putting. So we decided to use organic vegetable glycerin to not only give it a sweet taste, so it tastes good, but also so that people can continue to get the benefits from it, because what's the point if you've got this amazing product, but people aren't going to use it, or people can't afford to buy it. And so what we did with that is we intentionally priced this thing down as low as we possibly could to make it as fair for everyone, because there's a lot of people who are involved in this. And we wanted to make sure that first and foremost, your average consumer could afford it. So we've got it, listed at $33.99, plus Ben's got the discount code there that you guys can use, because we want to get this out to the masses. We could sell it for $60, $80, $90, but it would limit the amount of people that can consume it. And again, I've said it a few times now, but it's important to reiterate that we really wanted to get this out to humanity. And so that's why we did this. We're voluntarily taking a lower margin on it ourselves, just simply so we can get it out there.
I love that you're doing that. And that product is fantastic. You gave me a bottle when we met for dinner, and thank God that you did, because a few weeks after that, I ended up getting COVID. And I remember emailing you because I got COVID. I got super sick, where I was like, it got me really good, meaning I had a fever, 104.5 for 2 days, and I was banged up. And one of the main things I was taking was the pine needle extract, the dropper that you gave me. And and it tastes really good, by the way. You're right. My fiance and me, we love, it's like this light, sweet taste. And I was taking that along with some other things, and it really was a big contributor to me recovering back to 100% in about 6 days. This is a product that I will take with me every time I travel. It's a product that I highly recommend you take with you when you travel. It's just something that could really be supportive for when you get sick, or even to prevent yourself from getting sick. And it's $33.99, which is super cheap, and even less when you apply the coupon code. So we'll drop that down below. Now, for something like this, I know you mentioned echinacea needs to be cyclical. I agree. What about the pine needle extract? How should this be used in a cyclical form? And if it was, like, what's a good kind of ratio on versus off?
So I think for most things in general, it's good cycle on and off. I mean,
Yep.
certainly there's nutrients that we have to get in the diet, but something like this, cycling on and off, is beneficial. Now, we're coming into the fall, obviously. It really depends on the situation. So if someone's around someone who's sick, or you're going to be around, or you're traveling, obviously that's a good time to take it, and to take it every day. You can take it once a day, twice a day. You can adjust it depending, like, it's a good dose of 267 milligrams per serving. So it's enough to actually stimulate the immune system and have effects, but not enough to where it's going to be, if you take a couple servings, it's too much. So you can take multiple servings a day. That's fine, particularly if you are not feeling well. That's commonly a good time to do that if you're going to be around people who aren't feeling well. But just in general, your average everyday person, me personally, I would say, 4 or 5 days on, 2 or 3 days off, and you can just cycle that way.
That's great. And you're right. I think I agree. Everything should be taken cyclically, all supplements. The only exception would be something like magnesium. But even with magnesium, I'll use different forms, right? So it might be like malate, and then glycinate, and then threonate. So even that, I would cycle the forms. But that's something that we need. So magnesium and ion gut health, I'll take every single day. But most things, like you said, I cycle on and off. And I think that's very important. Everything in nature is cyclical. The tide goes in, the tide goes out. We have winter, summer, fall. You have the menstrual cycle. Everything is cyclical. So we got to use that with the food we eat and also the supplements we take. So I'm glad we're on the same page there. All right, last thing I want to talk about with you, Lance, is apple cider vinegar, and I love it. There's so many benefits to ACV, apple cider vinegar. There's studies that show it helps with postprandial glucose. There are studies that show it supports your liver to produce bile. So why are you a fan of apple cider vinegar?
The short answer is simply because it helps. It's one of those long-term remedies that has been used for who knows how long exactly, but we know if you go into a health food store, you got the apple cider vinegar in a supplement form, you've got it in the liquid form. So many people commonly take it. It's one of those supplements and those foods and those words that people just know, and they equate it to, fat loss or fat burning, stimulating your metabolism and just really revving things up. So I like it because of all those reasons. And first and foremost, again, because it works. But second, because it's doing this in a way where, clearly here in America, like we as a general society need to lose weight and need to do it in a healthy way and incorporate it with diet and lifestyle and all sorts of different things. And apple cider vinegar is one of those things that can help.
Absolutely. And then as the research backs it up, and you have a product that has the capsules in it along with organic cayenne pepper. And I love that you have this, because me and so many other people out there really don't like the taste of apple cider vinegar, and also what it could do to your teeth and stain it. So I love that there's a capsule, you have a capsule version of it. And I'm looking at the ingredients: organic apple cider vinegar, 500 milligrams, and then organic cayenne pepper, 10 milligrams. Why did you put cayenne pepper in there as well?
The capsaicin has a synergistic thermogenic effect in that it's going to help us start to get into that state where we're burning fat and where we're doing this in a way where it's actually going to benefit us. So capsaicin is just another little thing that we wanted to add in there from the cayenne pepper to just add in that additional benefit and really just create a synergistic combination.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to try that one. I haven't tried that from you. And you have a whole bunch of other stuff that we don't have time to get into. You have some coffee, probiotics, and your coffee is clean, pesticide free, mold free, and that's very important because, newsflash, if you're going to Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks and most commercial chain coffee shops, those coffee is loaded with pesticides and herbicides, as you know, Lance, and that's doing a number in their digestive system. So you want to make sure it's a clean coffee source. So you have your Ascent coffee. So we'll put the link down below if you want to check out Lance's company, and the coupon code is Keto Camp. There's other things on there, and he has research on there as well. Lance, where else can they go check you out? Social media, anywhere else you want them to go?
Yeah, I'm personally on Instagram, Lance Schuttler. My website, lanceschuttler.com. I'm also on YouTube, starting a YouTube channel and growing that. And then Ascent Nutrition, goascentnutrition.com is the website. Sorry, Ben, cut that out because you've got your links.
That's fine.
So Go Ascent Nutrition, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we're going to be starting a YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. It's exciting. I love what you're doing. Final question for you is in regards to a supplement that's not on your website, but I know you take this supplement every single day, and it's, I believe, the strongest supplement and vitamin in the world, and I call it vitamin G, gratitude. I want to know what you're grateful for today.
Today, I am grateful to be living down here in South Florida. And I truly mean that because I grew up in Iowa, and it's commonly, rainy and cloudy and overcast. Summers and springs are beautiful there, but here it's truly eternally summer. And I am a summer person. I love the sun. I need the warmth. So literally every day I'm grateful to be here where I live.
I love it. I am also a summer person. I am definitely heat adapted, not cold adapted. Thank you, Lance. I'm grateful for you, brother. I'm grateful that Dr. Lana connected us, the dinner we had, and today's conversation, even with all the tech issues that the audience is not aware of, but we worked around it. We made it happen. And I look forward to having dinner with you again and trying your other products. So thanks for the work that you're doing, the products you're getting out there to help humanity, and just helping people become aware. So thank you for the light that you bring today and every day.
Thank you, Ben. All the same, truly right back to you.